Hey guys, Carlise here. Welcome into the Shadow Box. I am Carlise, your host and your shadow work guide and your grief and trauma coach. Today with us, I have Tenya Eickenberg. Tenya is an energy healer and a certified and self-care coach who empowers individuals to release emotional baggage and realign their energy, helping them to reclaim strength, freedom, and happiness. With over a dozen transformational tools in her toolkit, Tenya offers a unique approach that transcends conventional medicine and talk therapy, emphasizing the nurturing of positive energy to facilitate deep, lasting healing. I love that, Tenya. That's what the world needs, right?
Yes, it is. I think it's what everybody needs to learn to practice.
Yes. And so go ahead and just fill us in a little bit more about yourself, Tenya.
Gosh, where do I start? I came into this world of energy healing because I was looking for something that was going to cure my anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And I had been told for years by the media, TV, doctors, my parents, that you can't cure mental illness.
Okay.
And chronic anxiety and depression is a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the point where I didn't believe it. Like you can being in a state of just disarray, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or whatever, you get to a point where you're like, there has to be more.
Right.
And that's where I got to, was like, I cannot count on anybody else to get me to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thrive in my life. I already had hints of like how wonderful my life was. We have 3 beautiful kids. I'll be married for 29 years this year. Mm-hmm. Together, actually, we're together for 30 now. We were together for 30 years just the other day, and we both forgot.
Congratulations.
But outside of that, like, I didn't see everything else that was or is wonderful in my life.
Yeah.
And
okay, so because we're talking to an audience that some of them know about energy healing, some
mm-hmm.
others don't. When I do conduct the podcast interviews, sometimes I'll talk about it. I talk a lot about the shadow. And from your perspective, tell our audience what energy healing is.
Energy healing is, for me, it was self-healing.
Okay.
It was something that I was exposed to in an effort to heal myself.
Okay.
I had gone down the traditional routes to help manage my anxiety and depression. And my anxiety and depression was what I call high functioning anxiety and depression. I could work a job. I could hang out with friends. Mine was all like really internal. Mm-hmm. And, you have those moments when like somebody drops a pencil and it just makes you burst into tears. Yeah. Like that is how my anxiety and depression would like start to like really show up, is those moments when something just broke the camel's back.
Okay. Yeah.
And what energy healing is to me, it was finding the parts of me, the things within me that I, on a conscious level, had no idea were there.
Okay.
It was trapped emotions from not knowing how to have my emotions as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, even as an adult. Like I pushed everything down until something exploded.
Right.
Right. And then you try to push all that down again. You start having that ugly cry and you're just like, I don't know why I'm crying.
Yeah.
And so energy healing gave me the ability to then do the conscious work. Okay. Yeah. So who I am has changed so much over the last 5 years. I went from somebody who was always a people pleaser, always putting everybody else's happiness and emotions ahead of my own. I still look ahead and be like, how can I make sure that everybody's taken care of
Yeah.
when we have like family events or something like that? I still do that, but it's not to the point where I'm wondering, do they appreciate what I've done? Do they like what I've done? I'm not looking for that validation from most people anymore.
Right. And that's coming from that aspect of that shadow,
Yeah,
right? So we
absolutely.
talk about, people pleasing and how it comes from your shadow and how it comes from the conditioning of how you were raised or how you
Yeah.
were brought up in your atmosphere, right? And when we're talking about the energy healing, so I'm a master Reiki practitioner as well. And so when we're talking about energy healing, if you guys see, she has the chakras that's on her back wall that's listed, that's right there showing you. And so when we're talking energy, we're talking about these seven chakras that are within our bodies that hold frequency, that hold energy, that hold stagnancy, that needs releasing in order for us to flow in the way that we're
Right.
supposed to, right? So
Right.
when we're talking about, the aspect of people pleasing, we're talking about that root chakra, which is the red one at the bottom. We're also talking about that solar plexus, which is your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really just flows all the way up, right?
Right.
And then we start talking about that throat chakra as well, because how do you express your truth? How do you express your authenticity? How do you express yourself? And put yourself to the front burner if you never knew how, if you always put
Right.
others before, right? And so when we talk about the energy healing aspect, we are talking about going through each and every one of those chakras at a cellular level, at an energy level, at a frequency level that helps to create space and get rid of that stagnancy that allows you to have that clarity in your crown chakra in
Right.
your head, that allows you to have that clarity in your third eye, that allows you to be able to connect with the higher source, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this is an internal function that we
Right.
all have that we need to keep balanced so that we can properly conduct ourselves outwardly,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And without doing that, when you have, I always explain to my clients that when you have these energies that are infiltrating your energy bodies, your physical body, you can think of them as those prickly things that you get on your socks when you walk through a field,
Yeah.
and they just stick to your socks, and you go there and you start picking them off, but sometimes you miss one and it might rub against your
Yeah.
ankle or something, right? So that's what I imagine that all of these energies are. And I had so many of them because I think that I was sensitive from the get-go, and I absorbed and took on a lot of what was going on chaos wise in my family.
So let's start talking about that. So let's go into what was your childhood like? What was the environment like? Where did you come from?
My so I don't have very many memories from before age 8,
Okay.
around 7 or 8. I have I have one, and I think it was with you that we figured it out, that I had one where I told my dad that he wasn't my real dad, and my real dad had a mustache.
Yeah.
And I when I met my husband, he had a mustache and a goatee.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured out, I've got goosebumps again. We figured out that it was at 4 years old, I had imagined what I envisioned my protector to be.
Right. Yeah.
And that is really the only memory that I vividly have.
Yeah.
So I now know that between my birth and around 8 years old was when my mom's bipolar disorder started to manifest and really come to the surface for her to have to deal with. And so there was a lot of yelling and fighting going on during that time. And so I shut down a lot of what was going on as a safety measure.
Right.
which makes sense why my root chakra was so imbalanced for
Yeah.
so long. Um, and it just continued through until, the last couple years has probably been the calmest that
Mm.
my life has ever been.
Why would you say that it has been?
Boundaries.
Okay.
I learned to set boundaries. I was always taught that family comes first. You don't push family away. You try to work with them and all this stuff. And what that did was it just continued to allow the people in my family to take advantage of me in ways
Yeah.
that I didn't understand.
Yeah. And as you say that, it reminds me of a part of our conversation that we had about dad and how he kind of enabled mom to
Yeah,
be how
in a way,
she,
yeah,
yeah.
he
Talk
absolutely
to
did.
me about that.
So, in order to kind of keep the peace,
Mhm.
we all enabled her.
Okay.
We all walked around like we were walking on eggshells, and we didn't want to crack another one.
Okay.
We were all guilty of it. I am. My dad's not a saint.
Yeah.
He had his problems. He dealt with things in his own way. Um, but I do believe that part of his blueprint was to stay with my mom so that us kids didn't have to deal with it.
Oh, okay.
So, and I learned that through my forgiveness practice of my parents,
Okay.
understanding that when they were raising us, they were raising us with the knowledge they had
Hmm.
at the time, just like my husband and I have raised our kids with the knowledge that we had.
Right.
And they were also raising us from their trauma.
Hmm.
I think they tried to heal from it as best they could,
Yeah.
given the resources that they had in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Their
Right.
their resources were not as abundant as I say my resources were.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they weren't as open to what else came into their awareness to help them like I was.
Yeah. And
Um,
also family,
yeah,
right? So we think about that because the conditioning doesn't only start with your parents. Like you said, it's generations
right,
behind, right? And
right,
so how did their family, how did their mother, father, grandfather, whoever, how did they think about therapy? How did they think about talking? How did they handle conflict and opposition within their lives? And so when that happens, when it doesn't happen,
right,
it just kind of rolls over into the next generation.
right,
And so the awareness and the resources start with your own family, what you have in your backyard, what you have in your home. And a lot of the times, because those resources aren't in that space, no one really thinks to go on the outside, or it's taboo, or there's a statistic behind it, or there's a stigma behind it. And it's like nobody felt, I think that's how people started getting caught up in their brain. This is the
hmm,
safest place for me to be, right? I can't go
right,
talking about this because, whoever's going to think whatever about me. And so we tend to build up our own little communities, if you want to
right,
say, in our minds. And then we have children and then we raise them in that community. And it's
right.
like, as we can see, a lot of the times the community isn't safe. It isn't right, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure because my grandmother was raised, my mom's mom was raised Catholic.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that it was, if we don't talk about it, it hasn't happened.
Hmm.
Right.
Which is across cultures.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for my dad's mom. Now his dad passed away before I was born. I think my dad was 19 or 20 when his dad passed away. Um my grandmother, my dad's mom, like she was always so kind. My mom would tell me stories of how kind she was to her. Um but I don't know what their thoughts were on um fixing family problems, like how they were fixed and addressed.
Yeah.
I know that going into my family, my mom was in therapy for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
But I can also remember my dad going and then stopping. I remember going to a lot of family therapy and then us stopping. I remember my mom would ask us on occasion to come to therapy with her. We had family meetings on the regular because there was always a problem that needed to be addressed.
Okay.
But I remember having to go to a therapy session with her, and this was probably between 2012, 2013, somewhere around there.
Okay.
My daughter reminded me of her perception of this meeting because she was in the waiting room and I was in the therapy room with my mom, and I had to tell my mom that I wasn't her best friend because her definition of a best friend was that I would help her with her problems, that I would listen to her about her problems, but all of those problems were about my brother, my sister, my dad. It was about my family.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't be that best friend.
Right.
And I wound up getting upset for some reason. I wound up leaving the therapy session and taking my daughter with me. And she said that I was so upset when we left that building. And she was like, that was the first day that she felt like she had to protect me against her nanny.
Yeah. And how are you supposed to be that person, that best friend or that confidant or whatever you want to call it for your mother when all of the time you were crying for a mother. You needed a mother, right?
Yeah,
So it
and
was
she
like,
didn't understand that.
yeah, all of that was on you for whatever was put on you. And it was like, I where is my outlet,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be my mother. I'm supposed to be talking to you about my woes of my teenage years and my relationships and this, that, and the other. But I've always had to parent you, right?
Right.
And so when we have parents who are who suffer from mental illness or who haven't addressed their own childhood wounds and mother wounds and things of that nature, depending on who you are, okay, myself being a holistic practitioner, being a healer, yourself being a healer, with us being who we are, they naturally navigate to us because we are that healing spirit,
Right.
right? And not understanding that we too needed parents, we too needed an outlet. But when we think about these things on the side of spirituality, on the side of energy healing, it's like it's a little unfair because we don't get that. Like we don't get to be parented sometimes,
Right.
right?
We have to learn to parent ourselves.
Right, because of our journey, because
Right.
of our healing nature, right? And so
Yeah.
we stop it's when we step away, we have to not look at our parents as parents sometimes. We have to look at them as the entities and the souls that we're supposed to come and transform in some way, right?
Absolutely. And I look back at when I was 8 years old, my mom was 28,
Mm,
29,
okay.
something like that. She's the
Mhm.
same age my oldest is now.
Okay.
So I can look at my daughter and go, I can't imagine, or even look at myself back at 28 years old. I can't
Hmm.
imagine having 4 kids living in a foreign country, trying to navigate 2 teenagers who are testing boundaries
Hmm.
and 2 little kids. And now I have this mental illness,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like my husband is supporting me in the way that I need to be supported because of the perception of what was going on from her view.
Got it. Yeah.
Looking at it from that perspective, and then looking at it from my dad's perspective of, I have this job where if I don't go to work, I get in really big trouble. Like he was working for the military. So like if he couldn't just take time off,
Right.
right? And he had to be gone 40 to 50 hours a week.
Mm.
And then he'd come home and he'd be like, "You're not working all day. What is it that you're doing?"
Yeah.
"I'm working all day. I'm tired. I don't want to come home and have to discipline the kids after you've been with them all day. Why didn't you discipline them then?" So I
Yeah.
was able to step out of that victim story of
Mm-hmm.
my parents were horrible parents.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know, they shouldn't have had kids. They didn't know how to raise us. They shouldn't have gotten, all of these should haves that they, these blame games that
Right.
we as children coming up in trauma or chaotic households tend to throw back.
Yeah. When your needs aren't met.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's absolutely a valid only thing that's coming through is procedure, but
Yeah.
journey. Like, it's a valid journey to go through all of those steps. But a lot of us stop at that blame game.
Yeah.
And we don't take that next step to go, "Oh, but what is it from their perspective?"
Yeah.
And be able to say, "Wow, they really did have it hard." I mean, it doesn't make what we go through as kids, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't absolve them from putting us through what we went through.
Yeah.
But it makes it easier to go, "I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why they behaved the way that they did, because they couldn't heal from what they went through.
Right.
They
And
couldn't see
that's
from a different perspective."
Yeah, and that's where you learn to give grace, right? And when you learn to give grace towards them, you learn to give grace towards yourself. And
Yes.
that's why, that going back into that forgiveness, that forgiveness aspect, especially when it comes to parents, that is huge. I mean,
It,
because that once we learn to be in that space, it frees us up so much more. And
yeah.
it doesn't dismiss what they did. It doesn't make anything right. But what it does is it gives us the space to love ourselves in the way that we wish that we could have been loved,
Yeah.
love ourselves in a way that we demand to be loved, right? So being able to turn ourselves inwards and say, this is who I am outside of their dysfunction, right?
Mhm.
This is who I am, and this is what I deserve, and this is about me now.
Yeah.
And that being about you, you get to determine what you put on your plate and who you call in and who you let out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And being able to do that finally got me to the point, because my mom would often, if I went to her about something, she would often turn the story around to be about her.
Yeah.
Now, I know it was so that she could help me relate, or for her to relate to me so that I knew that I wasn't alone.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go to a parent to tell them something's wrong, you don't always want to hear, "Well, I went through this too." Sometimes
Yeah.
you just want to hear, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
But it got to it, finally, after 4 years of healing, I finally was able to tell my mom in a conversation that this conversation was not about her.
Yeah.
This conversation was about me, and I needed to be heard.
Yeah.
But it took 4 years to get there,
Yeah.
of that healing journey, of that forgiveness, of learning to speak up for myself, um, to tell her, "This is what I need."
Yeah. And even if she wasn't able to give it to you, because sometimes they hear you, but they can't act upon it,
Right,
right?
right.
And so it's like sometimes you can tell them that, and they'll learn to kind of go mute, but
Hmm.
they're still not processing what it is that you need. So you end up actually just using them as a vent, like you just use them as a venting board.
Right, right,
Right. So it's like,
right.
I'm not really looking for you to help me. I
Yeah,
just need somebody to listen.
right,
Right.
right.
So when you as you started growing older, getting into your teenage years, what was the relationship that you had with mom?
So I think it was a normal teenage relationship. Once my older brother and sister were out of the house.
Okay.
Now my older brother was left with family members when he was 13 or 14, and my sister moved out when she was 17.
Okay.
So they moved out fairly young. But once they were not in the picture, the house got less chaotic.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else transpired. My little brother and I were both in school full time. My mom had a job. It was like there were probably a lot of different things, but life seemed to be somewhat normal. I had a rebellious stage,
Like we
started
all
smoking
do.
at 13,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we all have those rebellious. So it seemed like it was a pretty normal teenage years up until about 16 or 17. And then that was when my parents started having some troubles again. And my mom would start sharing stuff with me that would start to try to pin me against my dad. Things
Okay.
like, your dad never wanted children. He only married me because he needed a babysitter. Those kinds of things that were just like, wow. I look
Yeah.
back now and be like, that's not stuff that you tell your child, I think, at any age.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't do that child any good. It made
Yeah.
her feel better to get it off her chest, but she shouldn't have been telling me that.
And how did that reflect on you and your father's relationship?
I think it really made me look at him. I remember this one time after she had told me that he was ironing his work uniform, and I went and asked him, is it true that you didn't want me or Troy?
Mhm.
And he was like, no, that's not true. But I think there was always that, well, what if he's lying to me?
Yeah, that's
Why
because
would
that
my
seed
mom
had
tell
already
me?
been planted. Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Um,
are your older brother and sister, are they his children?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had them before he married my mom.
Oh, so they
His
were
first
not your
wife
mom's
died.
children.
Correct.
They, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the older two were just my dad's. His first wife passed away, and then 6 months later, he married my mom.
Got it.
So there
Okay.
wasn't a whole lot of space in between him grieving for his first wife and getting married. Um, and then they had my brother and I 10 and 21 months later.
Okay.
But yeah, so there was always that. My dad was always very quiet.
Okay.
And again, I think I stuffed down those feelings I was feeling at the time to keep the peace.
Right.
Because
Well,
again,
but
things
you,
get back
did
to
you
normal.
feel like your dad was present with you? I know that he worked a lot, but
Hmm.
when you didn't have mom that you could actually go to, you had, so you were trying to kind of navigate all these things. Did you ever have a point in time where you were able to go and sit with dad or have that real close bonded relationship with him?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, he did dad things, like he taught me how to drive, help me figure out. He might have helped me with like checking accounts and stuff like that. But there was nobody for me to really go to and talk about things that were going on.
Got
Never
it.
felt comfortable with that. When I was 13 years old, my mom opened up a letter that I was sending to my sister and called me home from school to discuss it. So I never felt like I had an adult I could trust with private things or with things that
Yeah.
were bothering me.
Yeah. So
I had
when
my
you
friends,
left,
and that was it.
yeah. So when you left out of the home, or as you started to kind of grow out of the home, what were you taking with you? because we obviously, we can't go detail to detail, but we know there was a lot going on in the home. There was a lot of lack of emotional support,
Mhm.
psychological support, a lot of just different things that you were not getting. Um, as you filtered off into the world by yourself, what did you take with you?
It's funny. They say that often you marry your mother or your father.
Hmm.
I think I made a subconscious decision that I was not going to do that.
Yeah.
I met my husband. We both worked for Olin Mills. He actually hired me. I
Hmm.
was 18 years old when we met, and within 6 months of us meeting, um, and starting to date, I'd gotten pregnant.
Okay.
And so we got married the following October. So we knew each other about a year before we actually got married. But my husband is nothing like either of my parents.
Hmm.
Um, he also was not emotional. I don't want to say he wasn't emotionally intelligent, but he was very um, like always in a manager mode.
Okay.
He could kind of separate himself from all of the emotions that were going on, and he's become so much softer over the last 30 years that we've really been able to grow together emotionally.
Yeah.
um, but I took that we weren't going to fight in front of the kids because that's all my parents did.
Yeah.
I took that if we couldn't work things out in a calm manner, then we needed to table it until later.
Okay.
um, I took that we needed to make sure that we fostered our relationship. We never got to, it never, was about like not putting the kids first,
Hmm.
but it was, we knew that one day the kids were going to leave
Right.
and all we were going to have was each other.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be able to enjoy each other our entire lives because we were making that commitment to each other.
Yeah. And having a foundation,
Yeah.
right? That's
A safe,
even
I wanted to be safe.
right. And you wanted your children to be safe. You wanted your
Yes.
marriage to be safe, right? And that safety comes in on each other protecting the other,
Right.
right? And then you can protect the children. Then you can protect the home. Like you guys were having, it's normalcy, right? Because out of
Yeah,
all the chaos that you had around you growing up, there was always a shaky foundation,
there
you
was.
know?
There was.
Yeah. And
And
so with,
I say that TV families kind of help shape
mhm,
what I imagined family should be,
mhm,
because everybody I knew had a similar family story to mine.
yeah,
There was always chaos. They didn't, always talked bad about each other behind closed doors,
yeah,
and I could never get into that. I could never get into putting my husband down because he did do so much.
yeah,
He really did do a lot. And you know, that was another thing I took from watching my parents' marriage was they would always go back and forth putting each other down. My mom more so than my dad, but
mhm,
that was just, it was not how I saw what a marriage, what I thought a marriage should be.
yeah.
And
And I
so,
love the fact that you recognize that, because I don't know, you can go through life with different partners here and there, going through different experiences. But when you find someone that is really your one and
mhm,
you're doing the work,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You are very protective of that person, right? And when I say protective, it's like you may have, maybe or may not, but you may have one friend, that you're super close to, or a sister or aunt or something that you're super close to, where you can go to and talk about those little problems that you guys are having, right? But you're not going to take it to the rest of the world. You're not going
right,
to take it to the friend circles, and you're not going to talk about him as if he is, as he's your opposition, or put it in a way that is that's demeaning his character. You're not going to talk against his character, because
Right.
the last thing that you want is for someone to look at your husband and have a different outlook on him than what you really know, right? All because of what you said,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that level of protection that you guys built around each other is what makes the foundation strong, because that's respect out of anything, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing is I didn't see respect between my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would joke a lot. It was, one of her favorite sayings, like, "Oh, I was just joking."
Yeah. Passive
After
aggressiveness.
right after she would say something that wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
Um, but I think on a subconscious level, I was like, I am not going to raise children in a house that I grew up in.
Yeah. Now, what did you bring into your marriage? So you started doing your work on yourself, and I know at about 30 years old, you kind of had a little disturbance that happened with you. You want to talk about how your perspective kind of changed and you became suicidal at that age?
Um, it around that age, I think I started. I think I had always had suicidal thoughts, never uh, working towards doing it, but there was always those thoughts of, why do I even need to be here?
Hmm.
Um, but I think I got those from my mom, because my mom would often um, threaten suicide,
Okay.
threaten to hurt herself if something didn't happen.
Got
Um,
it.
yeah, I was probably 30, 35 years old. Um, my mom, it was actually my mom who had told my brother and I, when my dad was trucking, that she was alone. She didn't know what she would do. She didn't know if she was going to be there in the morning. One of us needed to come down and figure it out, help her figure it out.
Okay.
Um, and it was at that point that I started to get the awareness of, while this is horrible, and I, as a human being, should be taking this incredibly serious.
Hmm.
This is like the fourth or fifth time my mom has used this
Yeah.
to get something that she wanted. I think she's just crying wolf.
Hmm.
And so I don't remember my brother or I going down there. I think we called my dad, and my dad was like, "She does this all the time. Don't worry about it. I'll
Yeah.
be home, early in the morning. It'll be fine." Um, but it was around that time that I realized, my gosh, I've had to grieve for her so many times
Yeah.
because of surgeries that she would go into. And, it would be, I may not come out. I love you,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then so I got used to grieving her every
Mhm.
time something went wrong.
Right. And so you always tried to stay ahead of it. You
I did.
started to prepare yourself for it. And when you say that you think that you got the suicidal ideation, we could say, from your mom, do you think it's because that seed was planted of that awareness of that particular act? Or do you think that it was because of the heaviness that you were feeling and the just feeling just like given up, that you felt like you wanted to, that you were thinking in that way?
I think it was a little of both.
Okay.
Um, I think that my mom bringing it to my awareness kind of told me that would be the quickest way to resolve whatever was going on.
Got it. An option.
It was an option.
Hmm.
The other options that didn't help was, after school specials and all that stuff around it, that kind of, now I see, kind of almost glorified
Yeah.
that kind of stuff happening throughout people's lives, because
Mm,
they didn't know how to handle things, per
right.
se, right? They didn't get the help that they wanted. And I
Right.
think that's when I really started to gravitate towards more natural healing of things. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid, and that really started me down that natural path of healing.
Got it.
Getting off of gluten and dairy and soy and getting on multivitamins and all these other supplements and going to
Yeah.
see functional doctors. It just kind of started taking me down that more natural route. But when I got into the energy work, it was really at that point when kind of the floodgates opened up, and
Mhm.
all of the things that I had been thinking, I realized were like all these seeds were planted throughout my childhood
Yeah.
of it's easier just to shove it under the rug.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it. And why I always told my husband, we need to talk about things when they come up. We
Mhm.
need to figure out how we can come together as a team.
Right.
And thank goodness he had the strength to be able to handle my emotional instability
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah.
Or
And
not
that's what,
30 years, because this is 30 years, 25 years.
well, close enough, right? And that's what I was getting to a little bit too, of you coming into your relationship with the, we could say, with the baggage, with the
Yeah,
emotional baggage,
yeah,
with the conditioning, you coming into that. And it's, I know when we talked about this previously, we did realize that there was that balance there that he brought in,
yep,
that he really was the protector that you needed. So he gave you that space and that safety
yeah,
to feel your emotions, right?
yeah,
Without you having to run from them while you were dealing with them.
yep.
So what did you, give me some examples of what you brought in that you had to deal with in the marriage that he had to give you space, grace, and safety in?
Uh, Dealing with my mom.
Okay.
First and foremost, when I would get angry with how she didn't see me as a wonderful daughter,
Hmm.
how she wouldn't see me as a good mom, unless it was, you know, in a card, Merry Christmas, so proud of you, that kind of, like, those kinds
Okay.
of things. But being able to, he was definitely my rock. He was the one that when I just needed to cry, he learned to just hold me.
Mm.
He learned to just let me have those god awful, ugly cries
Yeah.
and know that I was okay.
Right.
He also allowed me to teach him that just because I start crying during one of our conversations, it's not because of him.
Yeah.
He let me learn to love myself.
Okay.
And this has really come in the last 5 years. I mean,
Okay.
there were we were um, big supporters of each other. I was a stay-at-home mom while he worked 3 jobs.
Mm.
I went to work while he worked full-time and went to college.
Okay.
So we were always supportive of what the other one wanted to do to better themselves,
Got it.
regardless of what it was.
Yeah.
But he also brought to the table being a wonderful father,
Hmm.
wanting to be at all of his children's events as much as he could,
Yeah.
and teaching them and helping them with homework and stuff like that. He,
Yeah.
he was the he was the father to our children. He was the parent to our children that I wish I could remember having.
Yeah. And he
Because
was the protector and the safety
yeah,
mechanism that you always wanted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because while I'm sure that I have had good times with my parents, the negative memories outweigh the good memories.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and fast forward because we have this rocky upbringing with mom.
Hmm.
We had this managing, this parenting that needed to go on where the roles were reversed.
Yep.
Okay. So I know that you said later down the line, you and your mom's relationship got a little bit better. And I
Yeah.
think that is because of your ability to start that forgiving process, your ability to start your healing process and understand from a different perspective. So with that being said, mom ends up passing away here recently.
Yes. This
Right?
past July. Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about where you guys were at leading to her passing away, and then the processing of her passing away.
Um, so prior to her passing away, last time I had seen her was at Christmas. And the last time I spoke to her was on Mother's Day.
Okay.
Um, and she wasn't at this point, she wasn't talking on the phone very much. She had a lot of physical illnesses that um, prevented her from being able to text or email. Um, and her hearing wasn't great. So talking on the phone was not always um, productive.
Got it.
But prior to this past probably the last 6 months that we had interaction, we had been able to have good conversations, nice visits. The visits were not centered around her wanting to have a talk, or they weren't centered around trying to fix something. They were just visits, or
Got it.
just something that I had always wanted. I just wanted to have nice visits with my parents and enjoy each other's company.
Hmm.
Um, and probably the 6 months before Christmas, we were able to have one or two of those visits. So it was really nice. Um, with that being said, it still wasn't a close relationship. My
Hmm.
parents lived 2.5 hours away, so we didn't see them very often. Um, but it was probably in God's plan that they lived 2.5 hours away.
Okay.
um, and then when she passed, um, my dad called to tell me that she had passed, and I cried. I mean, I was shocked. It was not, um, we knew that eventually it would come because of how sick she had been, but it was still surprising when it happened.
Right.
And I there was a sense of relief, and I think that's where the outburst of crying came from.
Okay.
It was just all of this emotional energy that I had been holding on to and didn't know how to express it, how to get it out,
Yeah.
just came bellowing out. And I realized that it was two different kinds of relief.
Okay.
There was a relief of she's no longer in pain. She no longer, this body of hers, she no longer has to feel all this pain from this meat suit that her soul has been inhabiting.
Right.
But it was also a selfish relief of I no longer have to manage this relationship.
Yeah.
I can have whatever kind of relationship with her that I want to have with her on the other side.
Yeah. And it's freedom.
It
Right.
is. It absolutely is. And some people may think that that's my gosh, she was your mom. That sounds so heartless. But like you didn't live my life.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people realize once they do have a loved one that they lose, like the parents, the siblings, or especially parents, is that there's this aspect of you that you've been holding on to.
Hmm.
Whether if it's things that you've never said, even though you've forgiven, even though things may have gotten a little bit better, or all of these things, it's like there's still this ball of energy that is inside of you that you have been identifying with all your life,
Yes.
right? That you have been surviving with all of your life. And
Yeah.
so once that person is gone, it's like that energy ball explodes. And when it explodes, it exposes you to yourself,
Hmm.
right? It exposes you to your truth of what do I really think about this matter? You know,
Yeah.
if I were to, I don't have to think about it and feel guilty about it. I don't
Right.
have to feel guilty about no longer behaving in this condition because this is what I've always known, right? Without feeling that you are dismissing the parent or that you are being ungrateful or whatever that you could think of, you become it frees you up to become yourself. And it
It
frees
does.
you up to even to take away all of the it's like a cloud, you know.
Hmm.
It's a heaviness and it's a cloud and it's all of these things that you are penetrated with that is actually that person's energy, though their words, their behavior, their presence,
Yep.
and you become free from that.
You do, until the universe throws you a curveball
Mm,
and someone in your life shows up and behaves in the same way that you had to deal with before.
and that's where the healing begins.
And that's where,
Absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
that's where you realize that, oh my gosh, there's still healing I need to do around this.
Hmm.
And
And so, good thing. I love that you said that because I made a post a couple of weeks ago about trauma triggers and things of that nature, right? And you've done a lot of healing. You've
mhm,
done a lot of inner work, right? And so the true test really comes when those people do show up and you have to remember those tools.
right,
And just because you are aware of the manipulation of the behaviors of the words that rub you the wrong way, that you
mhm,
know it are, that has toxicity to it, just because you're aware of it doesn't mean that you are re-traumatized or that you're triggered. It just means that, hey, this I have a boundary with this now. And
right,
so I have to make sure that you stay within this boundary. But when you have that trauma, it's like it's a thin line. It's
mhm,
because if you don't catch it, it's
right.
like you feel like you're back in victimhood again. So kind of tell me about that
Yeah,
experience.
so I had a meeting with a family member, and the meeting didn't go for very long.
Hmm.
Within 10 minutes of us sitting down for lunch, they got up and left quite abruptly.
Okay.
And it crossed that trigger line.
Okay.
It threw me right back into how I felt when my mom would do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that while I felt that I had healed that part of me,
Hmm.
there was still something there.
Yeah. You're still
And
reactive to it.
right, right.
Hmm.
Which, I'm thankful that I was reactive to it, because then I can address it,
Yeah.
you know.
Definitely.
Um Sometimes we think that we've done all the healing we need to do on a certain subject or with a certain person. And you know, I may have been able to handle that had it been my mom, but it
Hmm.
not being my mom and it being shown to me again was like, I think it was the universe's way of going, you still have some boundary issues.
Yeah. And exercise what you know.
Right,
Exercise your
right,
tools,
right.
right?
Exactly.
Um,
So
and
I need to
yeah,
put boundaries up with that person. And I
yeah.
need to say, no, you're not going to disrespect me like that.
Hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
going to treat me in such a manner, then we won't go out in public with each other anymore.
Yeah.
It's that
And
simple.
with that, and with that too, I would say it may be beneficial after you process it all and after you really come to your stance on where you're coming from with it.
Mhm.
It is about letting them know, right? You do not approach me like that. You do not
Right.
talk to me like that. I do not accept that. And if you can't, then we will not be around each other. That way, when you put it in that way, you show them I have the power. You don't have the power, right? And so I'm not giving you a chance to do anything to me again. I'm letting you know what you can and can't do, and I'm okay with whichever one that you choose, right? So with that, that's how we, because when we, it's very important how we phrase things to people, how we say things to people, especially when we have those hair triggers. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
because if they know that I can needle you a little bit, if they know I can say one word or give her one look or wear that perfume that I know just throws her
Right.
off, they know that they can get you and keep reeling you in,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I just say be very mindful of the approach and let them know that you're in control.
Yep.
And you don't owe them anything. So if you decide that you don't
No.
want to have anything to do with them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's one thing I've learned is that just because we're family
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I have to put up with how I'm being treated.
Right.
Um, I still have unconditional love. I don't have unconditional tolerance.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference.
And with that too, that's where you give yourself grace, and you also find a little bit more grace for your mother,
Yeah.
because obviously this is something that goes on in the family,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's like, I know that this is not a me thing, this is a them thing that I had to find my way out of. So it's like,
Right.
I kind of feel sorry for you that you're still in this,
Yeah.
but
And
I'm so glad that I don't have to be in it anymore.
right. And I understand that they're on their own journey.
Hmm.
And sometimes no matter what I say, no matter how I say it, no matter how much I try to get them to see a different perspective, it may not matter
Yeah.
because they may be in the mindset that how their perspective of what happened is completely different than my perspective.
Yeah.
They're true. Two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
In their story, I can be the villain,
Hmm.
and I understand that.
Yeah.
In my story, they can be the villain,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that. It's because we all have our own stories.
Yeah, and accountability as well,
Absolutely.
because the way that you take that power back too is that when you assess everything that you've been through with your mom and in life and the things that the choices you've made, there
Yep.
may be things in there where you're like, oh, I really did that. You know, I really could have handled that differently. I really was the villain there. When you take accountability for that and you own it, there's
Yes.
nothing that they can say that, and you can say, yeah, I did that,
Hmm.
you know, but this is who I am now,
Right.
or what have you. So that power that they feel that they can throw at you because of what have you, you're like, nah, you really can't. But I'll tell you what I did do, and you cannot tell me or add anything more to that,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So you can't make me worse than what I am or what I did. I did this, but I sure enough didn't do that. And you don't get to say that I did that
Right.
or that's
Yep.
who I am, right?
Yep. Yeah. My
Yep.
mom asked me one time what did I feel my responsibility in the downfall of our relationship was.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I take 100% responsibility for my side of the relationship
Yeah.
because did I call as often as she wanted me to? No. Did I call as often as I wanted to? Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wanted to call more often than I did, but that fear of having to have a talk, having to have a hard discussion kept me from
Hmm.
calling.
Yeah. But that's kind of an unfair question. And I'm starting to not like this word fair or unfair or anything. I'm just noticing that within the last few months or what have you. But it's like an unfair thing for her to ask because it never originally started with you. It was
No,
never your fault,
no.
right? You just had to learn how to adjust with her wave. And the
Right.
waves started keep getting just overwhelming and started drowning you and throwing you here and there. And so you had to learn a protective mechanism towards her.
Yeah.
You know, her behavior was repellent to you, and you had to figure out how to protect yourself. And so it's like, I think for that, I'll ask you this question. Did she ever take accountability for what she did?
In our last conversation, she did apologize for because I told her that um, we couldn't have emotions in the house because she took them all. We couldn't be mad. We couldn't be happy for very long
Yeah.
because something always disrupted how we were feeling.
Yeah.
And she did apologize for that. And she said that she did what she thought she needed to do to protect us.
Got it.
And I understand that. I understand that that's where my parents were always coming from. I know they loved us. I know that they were doing their best to protect us against everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I know my dad did it until the day she died,
Yeah.
protecting my brother and I from having to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
Is why he never left her.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I accepted the apologies and I'm thankful for them. But again, apologies don't change what happened.
Right. And how did that affect you once she passed away? What were your I know you got the relief, and do you feel that you grieved for your mother as did you grieve for her like a mother, or did you grieve for her as someone that was kind of a distant energy?
For now, it's that she was a distant energy.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll change over time
Okay.
with being able to have that relationship with her now
Mm-hmm.
on a different level.
Yeah.
That may change.
Yeah.
I may grieve for her in 5 years. I don't know.
Okay.
Right now, I'm taking it day by day. Right now, it just feels, because I didn't see her for 6 months and we saw them once or twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe around the holidays it might be different. I don't know.
Yeah.
You
And it's
know,
still relatively new.
it's still relatively new.
Yeah.
You still have those questions of like, am I grieving the way I should be?
Mm-hmm.
Because of social media, you see how everybody else grieves for their loved ones that have passed on. And while I'm sorry that she's gone, I wish I could have known the Carol that everybody else seemed to have known.
Yeah.
I didn't get to.
Right. And
So,
we talked about that as well. And give us kind of a rundown on that, because that is something that really touched you as well, because you were hearing other people's perspective on her, their thought process about her, and you're like, that's not what I remember.
yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, I posted on Facebook to let everybody know that she had passed and to post their favorite memories of her
Mm-hmm.
down into the comments. And it was everything from, she would make me, a dessert, or she would make me something when I wasn't feeling well, or she sent me cards, or she made me Barbie clothes, or, she was a good listener. And it was just, it was like, I really wish I could have known more of that Carol, of that mom. I mean, yeah, she made me Barbie clothes. She made me clothes. She cooked me dinner. She was a mom. She
Yeah.
did take care of me. We weren't homeless. We didn't want for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the chaos that I went through was emotional chaos. My
Right.
needs were always met on a physical level,
Mm-hmm.
but emotionally, I didn't have the same feelings that all these other people had when sharing their memories.
Yeah.
And my hope is that as I continue to heal my relationship with my mom and with myself, that more of those good memories start to surface.
Yeah.
And if they
And
don't,
that you
then
make
they don't.
peace. Yeah. And you make peace with what you have,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I'm not,
I mean, because
I
it
don't feel
doesn't
like
have to
I'm lacking.
be. No, no, go ahead.
I don't feel like I'm lacking anything right now,
Right. Yeah.
because I did do my best to repair the relationship over the last 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
according to your own comfort zone too, because
yeah,
you had to keep
I
yourself
still,
safe.
yeah, absolutely. Up until probably the last year, I always waited for that other shoe to drop.
Mhm.
As much as I told myself I wasn't,
Yeah.
I know I was still waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think as you go through your grieving process, of this part of your grieving process, I think that this is where that final shoe is going to drop,
Hmm.
and that's where you're processing and you're healing, and that total whole forgiveness is going to come in, where you're settled and you're okay with it all,
Right.
right?
Right.
There's no guilt, there's no this, there's no question. It's I get to close this up the way that
Yeah.
I need to for me,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Within losing her, and just everything that you've been through, what did this expose out of you once you lost your mom? And like I said, it's relatively new, but
Right.
is there a particular exposure that just kind of hit you in the face when this happened? Like, oh, this is me.
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't think that's, I think the only thing that has surfaced was just the triggering of patterns being repeated.
Yeah.
And for now, I think that is, just the universe's way of saying you still have a little bit more to do.
Yeah.
And you still need to show your kids that behavior is not acceptable.
Yeah. Definitely. When we think about everything that you've been through as well, and I ask you this question, and it's probably going to be a good question to come back to in a couple of months as well, or maybe a couple of years, of asking you, Tenya, who are you now?
I am an individual who really has learned to love herself to the core, and understanding that loving myself doesn't mean that I can't grow, doesn't mean that I can't change. It just means that I love where I am today.
Right.
I love what's around me. I love the life that I'm living, even the hard parts.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, why do you love the hard parts? Well, because those hard parts help me to grow.
Yeah.
Those challenges help me to see things in such a different way. And I hope that I can help others to learn to see different perspectives. Just to
Definitely.
see the other side so that they can learn grace, so that they can learn to stand up, not only just stand up for themselves, but also see where other people are coming from when they're having to stand up for themselves.
Yeah. A well-rounded understanding of
Yeah.
self and others.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I know that you're an energy healer. I know that you are a coach. Are there any things that we should look for that's coming down the pipeline for you that we need to really say, I need to get that, I need to see that when it comes through?
Yeah, I have, I started group healing sessions.
Okay.
So it's a monthly membership and you get 16 healings a month.
Okay.
It's $49 a month, and it's really non-invasive and does not take a whole lot of time. It takes like 5 minutes a day to check in with yourself. But the progress that my clients are seeing in this healing group are absolutely just profound. So
Awesome.
anybody who wants to try it, please reach out. You can get a free month to try whatever theme is going on that month. But I got a podcast. I love laughter yoga. I love dancing. Just, I have, I have such an array of things. I'm not a one trick pony.
I get
I
it.
used to say I'm a jack of all trades. I don't think I have a particular niche anymore.
Yeah, I understand.
I
And
started
that's
with
okay.
I started with one, and it just it just keeps going off
Yeah.
into the ether to so many different things. And so,
Yeah.
because I always believe there's not just one modality
Mm-hmm.
that's going to help you. There's not just one person that's going to help you.
Yeah.
My goal is to work myself out of a job, so that my clients can either move on to somebody else or move on to themselves.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep.
And those are all those gifts. People have, when you come into your purpose exposes your gifts,
Yes.
right? And
Yep.
you learn that, there are so many different things that you can do, that you should do, that you're good at, that And just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're purposed on it. But there are things that are within you that you are supposed to provide services for, and I think that that's why you found it. And
Yeah.
so instead of me saying I'm a this, and this, I'm like I'm a holistic practitioner.
Right.
That's
Right.
what I
And
am,
an energy
right?
healer and a self-care coach. So
There you go. There you go. And then it's like if you need specifics, I'll tell you specifics.
yep.
But that anchoring down that niche is not necessary when you're working within your purpose. You just know the people that are supposed to cross your path, right?
Yep.
So awesome, Tenya. Well, is there anything else that you want us to know before we tie up?
You can find me at designyourexistence.com and Design Your Existence all over social media.
Yeah, and all of her links and memberships and ways to get in touch with her will be under her bio in the podcast. So you'll know exactly where to reach her at. And I would say really go for that membership and go for these healing sessions because you're worth investing. And she's giving you a way to do so that's not going to break the pocket,
Yeah.
right? So everyone else, I thank you so much for coming into the Shadow Box